Hello everybody, welcome to the video and live streaming show. I'm John Lacey and I'm joined as always by Sam Proof, and today we're talking all about trends. Should you chase them? Should you buck them? How do you feel about them and how do you evaluate new opportunities? That's all coming up on today's show. We are going out live to all the various places, so please let us know where you're watching from and what you're up to and how you feel about trends generally. If you are watching live, you can throw in that hashtag Team Live or hashtag replay. It's interesting. I've made some changes and that wasn't quite exactly what I was expecting to see there, but that's okay. It's the joy of live. So, Sam, how has your week been?
I don't even remember. It's been so hot in Los Angeles that it's all a blur. The girls have gone back to school, so everything is changing and new and different. And cats are cats, still doing all of that stuff. Yeah. We have a bunch of things coming up. So next week, the Just Kidding Around podcast has a new guest, and it's going to be with Joey Clift, who created the LA Underground Cat Network, which is a giant Facebook group dedicated to cats, which I inadvertently, this was not planned before he became a guest, I have inadvertently become co-admin of that, and he's stepping down, and somebody else is also co-admin with me. So that's a weird twist. And then we're planning on a big D&D charity event for the end of September. So that's what's going on.
Just in case you didn't have enough to do, you can go and admin that Facebook group. That sounds really, really interesting. So I've had an interesting week, and I want to apologize to everybody because something happened on the show last week that I didn't really appreciate what was happening until it was rather too late. But last week's show was about OBS Studio. I did plug in a Logitech web camera so I could demonstrate some aspects of that software. The thing I didn't realize at the time was that my computer and StreamYard both decided that that was going to be my audio interface. So even though a couple of people in the chat very kindly told me that I sounded a little bit different, it didn't quite dawn on me to go and check those settings. So as much as I think we covered some great stuff last week, the audio isn't great, and we probably will redo that at some point. So that's just me being dumb. So sorry, but it happens. And I think that's... I was so frustrated with that last weekend when it dawned on me what had happened. But sometimes that's kind of the bargain you make with live. Like, anything can happen once you press that button. But the other thing that was slightly less serious and more just straight up amusing, again, for the people that may not know, I'm always in front of a green screen, and I wore a fluoro yellow t-shirt during the week for my day job meeting, and this is kind of how I looked because there was a little bit too much green in that shirt. So it's hilarious. And now that I know that actually is a thing that is in my wardrobe that I can use as maybe a prop, as a bit of a cloak of invisibility, I might have some fun with that. But yeah, it is funny. And again, like I say, you've got to laugh it off sometimes and just get stuck in. So that's been my week. Probably not as many things as is going on in Sam's world, but he's always living that busy life. So I guess today we're talking all about trends, and it's funny. In some ways, Sam and I are kindred spirits, but in some ways we have very different values. And I think today you're going to see a lot of contrast between the two of us, which will be quite fun potentially. But Sam, I'm gonna open this up to you first. Like, how do you feel about, and maybe we'll start with video and live streaming specifically, content creation. How do you feel about sort of chasing trends and when that might be appropriate?
I mean, yeah, I feel like you were saying there's sort of a dichotomy in how we look at it. I think I have that within myself. I think I am both very active to chase trends and, and we're going to be talking about both content wise, styles of videos and things like that, as well as new platforms and things. Those are a totally separate type of trend that I'm always going to jump on just to grab my username. But I think, and I recently kind of came to this conclusion that, I definitely throw myself out there way too often. And we've talked about this before, and you don't want to run yourself ragged and jump on every single possible trend you can. I think there does need to be a balance between what is trending and sort of evergreen things and having a combination of the two. And that is a lot of what we did, in a way, to sort of get the Cute Avalanche channel to partner status, which I don't know if evergreen's exactly what we want to call it, because a primary amount of what we were doing was just live streaming. So it was more personally topical, I guess.
And I feel compelled to say, though, that kittens are never out of style or out of time.
Yeah.
So, people love that content all the time.
Yeah.
Hi to CG, by the way,
Hey,
who's joining us
CG.
in the chat. Thanks for being here.
But yeah, the counter side of that is that we did also focus a lot, and are still focusing a lot, on sort of those trendy meme vertical videos. So there was a good percentage of what we are putting out there right now.
And I'm trying to be balanced, but I know I have
Sure.
no objectivity when it comes to this topic. So,
and you shouldn't.
and I made a podcast about this earlier in the week, but for me, like, not only am I trying to focus predominant, and I guess the thing most people need to know about me, and it may not be obvious, that, deep in my soul, I'm first and foremost the teacher. So I really want to teach people how to do things, and like I'm looking to produce evergreen content that people can find in a year or two's time and is still basically relevant. I mean, some things change from time to time, but I'm not really looking to exploit trends necessarily in the way that I see so many other people do. I kind of think they're a great way of sort of grabbing some awareness up front. And I mean, often it's really fun and quite funny to play into that cultural zeitgeist. But I guess for me, like, and I always wonder how transparent I should be about this specifically, but a lot of time and energy goes into content creation, and like I want it to be good and I want it to be right, and I kind of want it to be relevant for a long period of time. And it's not to say, and again, we're going to talk about actually working with some of those CapCut templates later on in the show, but I guess I don't really want to put all my energy into the pointing and the dancing and pointing, or, Markiplier telling me that it's his favorite thing. As much as I love actually watching that stuff as a consumer of TikTok in particular, and I spend an obscene amount of time on TikTok, it's kind of embarrassing. But again, like, as I can enjoy those things in the moment, but I don't usually, like, that's not usually the basis of a ongoing relationship for me with a creator. And especially the nature of those vertical platforms. Like, if you're not subscribing then and there, you may or may not ever see that person again. It just depends on the algorithm. But I guess for me, like, my values, if I'm creating something, I want to own all the copyright in it. I want to be able to repurpose it to my heart's content. I don't want to worry too much about, this music is licensed on YouTube, but it's not licensed on TikTok, and then something else happens on Instagram and Facebook. So I do try to avoid that. But also, and this is going to sound really, I don't know, maybe narcissistic, but I've never been a particularly popular person. So chasing the trends and the popularity has never worked for me. And there have been times in my life, even as a content creator, that I've tried to play that game, and it was just so demoralizing. But yeah, I mean, so again, like the focus for me really is on evergreen, the perennial stuff, making sure that I have the copyright, and also just, spending. This is something I say all the time, and I'll probably say many times today, but like, there are opportunities everywhere, but you do need to think about where you're putting that time and energy, because that opportunity cost is real. And if I have an hour that I could be writing a long piece of content, for example, or, making a short video, I kind of need to evaluate that, because I only have so many hours in the day and in the week, and so much energy. And again, I'm probably drifting off into my grumpy old man routine, but like, I spend a lot of time in this computer. Parts of my body just ache all the time, and I just have to, I have to really negotiate a lot of that stuff. So it's not ideal, but like, it's just some things to think about. And I guess, like, the context for this for this show today, I think, is, we've seen the Barbie stuff and the Oppenheimer video, and how they've sort of been put up against each other as this weird juxtaposition of things. And I see a lot of people making content around that, and that in itself is fine and wonderful. But I guess, I what I want to know is, how does that relate to your goals? And I guess that's another divide that maybe we need to articulate a little bit better, is that some people are just making funny things for their friends, and that's totally cool and awesome. But if you're trying to build a brand, or driving traffic, or trying to sell a digital product or a membership or something, I kind of wonder, because I see, like, especially on LinkedIn, like, you see the most tenuous links between whatever the clickbaity thing is that grabs your attention and the subsequent moral of the story. Like, what can Barbie teach you about managing your underlings or whatever? I don't know. Like, sometimes it is such a stretch, it's kind of ridiculous.
There's a lot of, especially on just social media and stuff, where people like, why this Mr. Beast thumbnail drove 4 billion views? Because it's Mr. Beast. Like, first and foremost, because it's him. And I'm like, you're just trying to make content. You might as well be an AI. But yeah,
well, I guess, like, that's the thing. And I, like, occasionally, like, even in previous shows, like, you would bring up Mr. Beast. And I think a lot of people invoke him to get younger content creators excited and YouTubers excited about things. But it's not a particularly relevant frame of reference for me. Like, I'm never going to be that person or have that kind of money to like, I'm just going to casually whip up Squid Game in my backyard or something. Like, that's just not even on the cards. Like, it's just, and it's funny because I listen to a lot of podcasts, watch a lot of video shows, and so many people do that. And I think that's great for Mr. Beast. Like, I've got nothing against Mr. Beast personally, but, like, it is not instructive for me where I am and for the things that I do. And podcasting has their own example of that, and I'm not going to mention that person's name because they have a very strange following, and they will hunt me down. So the less I say about that, probably the better. But I think it might be worthwhile. We'll come back in just a second and talk about how we can evaluate some of these opportunities and decide whether they're right for us.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I talk to him, be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that, of course, is the Just Kidding Around podcast. You can learn more about that over at cuteavalanche.com. And I know, like, there's a good chance a lot of people in our audience know Sam and know Cute Avalanche, but I guess just for the benefit of anybody that's not aware, like, that is an organization that you fostering kittens and, rescuing kittens and looking after them and finding them their forever homes, but also using a lot of, video and live streaming technology to spread that good work. And we've done entire episodes actually on that work, so you can go and check that out in the archives. All right, let's talk about actually evaluating, all the opportunities we have at the moment, because, and I guess, maybe the place we need to start, and as much as it's another problematic person I don't want to talk about, but there's somebody over at Twitter that's making life really weird for Twitter users, and as a consequence of that, like, there have spawned so many of these Twitter clones, and probably more than I can even remember to mention at this point in time. And full disclosure, I'm on all of them. And I say I'm on all of them in the sense that I've signed up for them. I haven't really looked at any of them lately. I know there's Threads. I know there's Mastodon,
Post.news.
Blue Sky. I don't even know all of the ones that I'm on, and somebody invited me to something earlier in the week, and I don't even remember what it's called, but I'm gonna just refer to my phone briefly. T2. Again, I don't know what's going on with T2,
but
but
saw that one.
Yes. So we took, hey Drax, thanks for joining us. So I guess, obviously at the moment, it's a great time of flux. Like there's a lot of things changing, and I'm curious. Maybe Sam, I understand that you're mostly, or maybe Cute Avalanche specifically, is mostly on Threads. Like how are you looking at all of these things and sort of weighing them up?
Yeah, oh God, you know what? I was just taking somebody's course and they said something in there, uh, and they were talking about more brand deal wise on how to evaluate something. And I was like, that makes total sense in the context of like whether or not you should be using an app. And I wish I could remember his 2 points, but one was like, you want to just know, like, is your community even on there? And how much of your community is on that app? Are they using it daily or weekly or, just casually? Because, like, is it going to be worth your time? When we talk about not spreading yourself too thin, I'm all about grabbing that username so nobody else can be Cute Avalanche on, Threads or whatever. Thankfully, Threads was so well thought out that if you had an Instagram account, you wouldn't lose your username. That's awesome. Kudos to them. But yeah, it's so easy to jump at every single new platform that's out there and be like, all I have to do is copy and paste this to all of these things. And now suddenly you're wasting 2 hours of your day not making any progress on 20 different platforms, where you could just double down on one and, build out from there. So, it's got to be something where it's cost efficient to your time. Like, do you have followers there to start? And that's I think the main starting point.
And I mean that's great, but again, for the benefit of people who may not know in the audience, like Sam has years ahead of me in this regard. But like, if you don't even have an audience, like I barely have an audience. It's kind of one of those things, like you may not already have people there, so it is sort of hard to evaluate, what's going on. Hi to Walter Strong III and Roy, Tech Troublemaker, for joining us. Drax is asking what the topic is. So today we're sort of talking about trends and when we should chase them and when we should buck them and evaluating some of the opportunities. We're also going to talk specifically about working with CapCut as a video editing piece of software. I know not everybody loves CapCut, even in this audience right now. So,
right.
If that's not for you, feel free to tune out when we get there. But thank you for joining us nonetheless. So Roy makes this great point. So if a trend could be evergreen, then maybe. And again,
it depends how we want to qualify that, because I will actually just say that I had a shorts video from 2 years ago just pop off again. So, depending on what we're calling a trend, it's potentially possible.
Yeah, and I think in some ways you may not know what's likely to get traction in that regard. But again, I guess the point I was making earlier was that I'm not particularly interested in chasing trends, and I have to be careful because sometimes I can be quite dogmatic about that. But really, for me, at the end of the day, in my heart, I'm first and foremost the teacher, and I want to teach people how to use technology. So that's the thing that I'm looking at, and I kind of want to give people the tools and the instructions to be able to make cool stuff that they want to see in the world. So that's where I'm coming from, and I'm just, because I know there's been a whole bunch of people just join us now, I'm going to reiterate some of those earlier points. Yeah. For me, like, first of all, copyright. Like, if you're using other people's music or sounds or video or images, like, there are some limitations about what you can actually legally do with that stuff. So at the end of the day, like, and there are different licensing arrangements in different platforms. Something might be available. And this kind of hurts my head, but Sam has talked about it previously. Sometimes YouTube is licensed to use audio in a short, but not in a long form video.
Yeah.
And you may not know that until you get the copyright notice. So again, just keep that in mind.
And you also may not realize it until you publish that short, because they don't have that built into the upload system.
Mm-hmm. So again, like, it's a little bit fraught, but I guess for the other couple of things, like, again, I don't really like. I'm personally not interested in chasing trends. Like, I'm just not popular enough to make that happen. But for me, I think sometimes the temptation, and this sort of goes with our social media discussion as well, like the temptation, the FOMO when it comes to new things. Right. Like, we are human beings are disproportionately obsessed with new and novel stuff. And for me, honestly, I think most people, and I know this is really unsexy advice and people turn off the minute I say it, but there's a good chance you need to just get down with the fundamentals. Like, you really need to think about how you're crafting your message, how you're building relationships with your audience. As much as we do love having a bit of a play with the way that we look as part of our stream, I think most people should be coming more for you and your message and the things you're sharing rather than any sort of fancy special effects or borders or colors.
So, you know what, based on that exact thought, that's how you should approach trends. Like, you don't just go out and be like, oh man, everybody's talking about Barbie, I should make a video about Barbie, even though I am a barbecue guy. And I, talk about selling grill accessories. But when you know what your topic is, what your niche is, and you can then take those concepts and apply it to a trend, then it's worth using.
Absolutely. And Roy, Tech Troublemaker, is saying if the trend isn't you, then you won't look comfortable with it.
That's
and
almost
I guess
exactly what I'm saying.
Yes, exactly. And again, we've spoken about this before, but like, there are so many people that felt they had to go onto whether it was Instagram Reels or TikTok, and they had to dance and point because that was the popular thing. But it's like,
won't do it.
If you get famous for dancing and pointing, is that going to help you? Is that going to help your business? Is that going to help your brands? Unless you're a professional dancer, probably not. Right. I mean, sometimes, there might be other entertainment fields that are, adjacent, shall we say. But again, like, I think, and it's frustrating because especially if you're a beginner and you're not getting a lot of traction, you don't have a big audience, like, it can be so tempting to want to do whatever the fun new thing is just to see if it works. But sometimes you can be a victim of your own success if it does work, because I think you've got to know yourself enough to know what you're about and what you really want to focus on and do and share. And I guess the other thing too, in terms of the trends, is that they do date really quickly. I kind of said in a podcast earlier in the week that if you've seen 10 Ken meme videos, you've seen them all.
Right.
And, it's really interesting because even though I do watch an obscene amount of TikTok, like, it's not nourishing. Like, it's not good for me. It's funny and it distracts me, and it's great when I'm feeling depressed to just, scroll at my phone for hours at a time. But like, I just can't see it, building into bigger and better things necessarily. But again, like, it just depends on what you're doing and what you're up to. I think, like, now that we have a few more people in the comments, I'm actually going to switch back to this other banner because I think we do have a little bit more to say about this, and we'll get back to our social media discussion in a second. But Drax is asking, what is the point of a trend? So
do they have
I guess the point of a trend, broadly speaking, is that people are already talking and thinking and sharing about it already. So it could be that somebody is specifically seeking out information or entertainment about a specific thing. And I know there are people that are very, very invested in the Barbie movie, and they're probably, like, their whole, For You page is probably just wall-to-wall Barbie. And if maybe there's an opportunity with the right hashtags, with the algorithm treating you nicely, for that to be put in front of a lot of people's faces. But again, like, what is the bridge between the trend and whatever it is that you do and share?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a broad question. What is the point of a trend? Like, I think on the broad strokes of it, it's like, how can you lend your voice to something that is in the zeitgeist? And the flip side is, and how does that convert to views, or possibly actionable, things after that? Like, can you convert from a trend somebody who becomes a subscriber or, a buyer of a product and something like that? And there's, as many possible answers to that question as just any video, really. It's just how do you take something that is being popular right now and convert that to something usable or useful.
And I guess
Yeah.
like the place that I do see this working well is when there is a genuine link, and like sometimes you can, you know, if you're a career coach and you're like, and again, I haven't seen the Barbie movie. I don't know why I keep reaching for it as an example, except that it is so in my face. But, you know, if we imagine there was a character that had something go on with their career and you say, this is the lesson that you can learn from this, and this is what you can tell your boss when you want a raise or, you know, whatever it is. But I think it's important that it's a meaningful link. It's not a tenuous link. And just to take the already popular thing and then bring them into your world. I think that's really where the power is. But again, and I guess the other thing that I feel compelled to acknowledge at this point in time is that depending on, you know, the kind of content you're producing, it may not even matter that this stuff dates quickly, because especially with the short form vertical videos, that stuff dates really quickly anyway. Like if people haven't seen it in the first few days, like they probably never will unless they go to your profile and seek it out specifically. I mean, occasionally it might come back through something happening with the algorithms and whatnot. But and again, like I don't want to rain on anyone's parade. If you're just having fun, just have fun by all means. That's awesome. But again, for me, I want to draw it back to my goal as a content creator.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we talk about trends, there are a bunch of really just broad strokes in what that trend is, right? And I think all trends boil down to one of, I'm just going to say 20 different things. And like, it is always going to be that thing packaged in a new shiny, like this one's the Barbie one, this one's the, you know, the Oppenheimer version of that or whatever it is. And if you know your niche and what those sort of, again, 20 is an arbitrary number, but those 20 things are, then when a new trend pops up, you can isolate it and be like, okay, this is what is my take on something bad has happened, but I succeeded anyway, you know? And then you can pop in whatever makes sense to, I am the guy that talks about live streaming. How does that work? Oh, I muted my stream, but I still got 20 views, you know, whatever it is, or 20 chatters telling me that I muted my stream. So whatever it is.
Like, particularly with those short form vertical videos, like that's the point at which it's really worthwhile to have a content library, have it well organized, and just go, hey, you know, it's been a little while since I've revisited this subject. Is there a popular trend that I can sort of, you know, just as a bit of a hook even, just to say, hey, did you notice how Barbie did XYZ? Well, you can, I don't know. My examples here are not great because, like I said, I haven't seen that movie. And it's weird because I don't, just the climate that we're in at the moment, like I would say that I'm not interested in seeing that movie, but I also feel compelled to say I'm not one of these people that thinks it shouldn't exist. Like it's fine. I'm not concerned about it. I just have 3,000 DVDs that I haven't watched at home yet, let alone going to the cinema. But anyway, I think we're probably exhausted that one. So let's head back to evaluating our opportunities, and especially with those social media options. Like at some point in the future, there will be more ways to... There'll be third-party tools that you can post to all these new emerging platforms potentially. But it is one of those things that... and again, like, you hear two bits of advice around this sort of thing. One is either, you know, just go deep on one or two channels, really get to know them, customize your content for those channels. Or the thing that I do, and it's like, if I've created something and I'm giving it away for free, I just throw it up everywhere. Sure. And admittedly, like Sam did mention earlier, that now there are so many different platforms, it can be a little bit more challenging than just copying and pasting. You know, I can't access Threads from my desktop computer, so I've got to do that on my phone. And I'm a computer, like I'm a desktop creator. Like I do everything on the computer. I use my phone for personal stuff, but I'm not filming videos. I'm not writing long bits of text on my computer. But again, it's and when Threads was announced, like I just saw the entire internet just groan with fatigue. Like not another one of these platforms. Like just make it stop. Because I think in some ways social media gives us the opportunity to spread our message. But again, we got to think about, what the platform actually wants, who's on there, and really how much time do you have to devote to it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like and this is my teacherly bias coming back in probably, but I want to create sort of tutorials, articles, standalone video, and then to the extent that they're appropriate, I'll share them amongst different platforms. And that could be natively. I could be uploading a video to Instagram. It could be a link to my website. And I think for me, the lesson of Threads and all these other platforms is that these are all great opportunities to amplify your message, but your message probably should live on your website. And I know I say that probably every other week, and I know that my my poor website needs updating, and I'm a web developer as well, so I have no excuse except that I don't have the time and energy to do it most weeks. So, yeah, so I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to add in terms of the social media, and we can sort of explore some other channels as well.
I mean, I would just, I have taken I think a big step back from all of the sort of Twitter clones, except for maybe Threads. I had so many of those on my phone, and now I'm pretty much just doing Twitter occasionally. Like I have dropped my Twitter time down considerably. But so yeah, I do Twitter and I do Threads now, and both of those just as much as like just to get the message out, just the necessary amount. So yeah, if somebody makes like a Hootsuite for the 20 platforms that are out there, now that TweetDeck costs money, that would be amazing. And then I would be like, yeah, I'll jump back on all of those, but I'm not doing it. Yeah. Conserve your time.
Yes, yeah. And again, like that comes back to my earlier point, like what is the thing you want to make and share and build? So I think social media can be good in amplifying a message, but again, I don't think it should be the bulk of any of our work. Like it really is, it's promotional, it's marketing, and it's useful. But again, I don't think it should be the main thing that you do, unless you are like a social media manager for a company or something. So Drax is asking, how does a trend become famous? Well, I mean, by virtue of it being a trend, it's kind of already famous. But again, yes. I think, there are probably all kinds of reasons for this, but, especially if we come back to our movie examples, there's been a lot of money pumped into the marketing of that. And
sure.
I don't know if those film studios have actually reached out to influencers or if that just sort of happened organically, but
100% they have. Just a few key players, I'm sure. Like, when we talk about trends, there's things that happen in the sort of traditional media. There's trending sounds, there's trending hashtags, and there's sort of trending video formats or memes, right? So, I think a lot of that can be boiled down to, in the case of traditional Hollywood, what is just going on. Like, current event news stories or things in entertainment are almost always going to trend. Somebody dies, that's going to trend. A movie is released, especially like a blockbuster, not an indie, that's going to always trend. Big political news, things like that. But then, when you flip it over to the more TikTok-y side of things, where like you have trending audio clips or music clips or memes style videos, I think a lot of those actually just get started off of one big player, and then like their audience goes forward with it and repurposes it and goes crazy, and that's all it takes. Like a Markiplier does something, and then everybody's got it and they're gone, and now they're pointing at their favorite thing.
It's interesting, and like I don't want to dwell on this too long because we do have a few other segments to get to. Hi to Claire, by the way, for joining.
Hey, welcome back.
Always lurking. We love it. But like I would be very surprised if Markiplier actually uploaded that thing that everyone's using as a trend. So I kind of wonder if it's even appropriately licensed, shall we say.
It feels like it was very intentionally created, because I've seen a few other things that have him in it, and while the account that has uploaded the template is clearly not him, it seems like the source was intended on making those sort of things.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so and this is a great point from Walter. So, a lot of people became content creators by creating a video to do
There you
the
go.
ice bucket challenge for
That's true.
ALS. So that would be an example of a trend. And I guess too, like in the Cute Avalanche world, like I know that you do specific things around specific dates, whether it's Amazon Box Day or Valentine's Day or Christmas or Hanukkah or like and I think, like, to be honest, there is an element to building rituals and expectations with in your audience. And like, honestly, just being able to have a regular thing that you do and you don't have to recreate the wheel from scratch each time can be amazing for a content creator. So
yeah, I mean, having a reoccurring like trend like that, I think is way better than just like, oh, how do I react to this big news story? Because like when I'm on Twitter, somebody has died and everybody's on there being like, here's all these things I thought about this person. I'm like, I need a week. I need a week to just deal with this and think about it, and then like come back and be like, hey, does anybody care what I think about Pee Wee Herman at this point? Because I actually, no. All right, we've moved on to Barbie. Cool, bro. Like I can't jump on that kind of thing. But having like, this is what we do every time Halloween comes around, great. That takes a lot of choices off my plate, and I'm like, I know what I'm doing for an entire month now. This is it.
And like, I guess, like, in terms of formats, that's great. But I guess like the other thing, like, just having a routine of any kind is so good for a content creator. And it's funny because I'm in a Facebook group and each week they're like, what are you creating? And I'm like, I do the same things each week. Like, the subject matter is different, but I've got the podcast, I've got the newsletter, I've got the live stream show. I might be adding an audio LinkedIn event on top of that, depending on how things go. But anyway, I mean, that's fine. But I mean, that's a great point. So I guess Drax is asking, what is better, CapCut or Photoshop? Well, they're basically very different programs. So CapCut is a video editing piece of software. Photoshop is for images. I'm sure you can probably do some animated GIF stuff
video in
Photoshop.
There, but yeah, it's mostly for making GIFs, and yeah, I would not use that for video cutting.
I mean, if you were using the Adobe Creative Suite, there are certainly other better options for video specifically. But we're going to come back and talk about actually working with CapCut and working with captions and other things in just a moment.
And then I looked at the first assessment, and the first assessment was record a 5-minute video. And it was a pretty simple introduction of yourself. There was nothing exciting. I didn't have to research. It was just a 5-minute warm up. And I freaked out. That course is still sitting in the cupboard beside me. I see that stack of papers and I almost rock in the corner. It cost me a lot of money to sign up, and I threw the whole course away.
And you can learn more about Build a Presentation Muscle, which is my audio podcast, over on johnlacey.com. And earlier in the week, I did talk about sort of trends and how I feel about them. So if you want a little bit more content after the show, you can check that out. But let's talk about actually working with CapCut. We've done an entire show on CapCut previously. It's a great free option. I know some people are a little concerned that it is owned by the same people that do TikTok, and that's a whole other discussion for another time. But today, I just want to talk about how you can get started. And I think for us these days, this is kind of the entry-level video editing thing that we recommend. It's cross-platform. You can use it on your phone. You can use it on your computer. You can use it in a web browser on the cloud. It's free to get started. I think they do upsell some things. But I guess what I want to talk to you about now is working with captions in CapCut. And again, this is sort of a very nuanced thing, that accessible captions and fancy captions are not necessarily the same thing. So depending on where you're using them, you might want to think about that. But let's just get stuck into this. I've got CapCut open. I might just make myself a little bit larger, but we can certainly hear you in the background, Sam, if you want to interject. So this is just a short video.
Sorry. Go on.
This is just a short clip from a show from like 1,000,000 years ago. I don't know how old this one is. It doesn't really matter for our purposes. But basically, like, you can actually, if you have caption files, and often I will have SRT text caption files, I can drag in here and I can add them that way. But if we go up to the text portion of our screen, there is actually some auto caption options. So again, this is this one here on the left-hand side. Basically, they're offering to recognize speech in the video and generate auto captions. We can sort of pick the language that we're speaking. I don't think... no, okay. I know I use a captioning program called HappyScribe, and it also actually gives me the option to specify an accent. So sometimes that can help as well. But essentially, I choose that. I hit create. It does its thing in the background. Again, this is a short clip that's less than 1 minute long, so I'm not imagining this will take very long at all to happen. But essentially now down the bottom, we've got these captions. So first of all, I think what we need to really notice is the fact that you can barely see them. So what we want to do, and again, if we come up over here, we've got... I'm not obscuring that, am I? No. Okay, cool. No. So we've got our captions, we've got our text, we've got our animation, and our text-to-speech. But if we work with our text options first of all, and you'll see there's actually a checkbox here that says Apply to All. And this way we can make changes to all of our captions at the same time. So I'm going to increase the font size of this. I'm going to change the color because, again, I can barely see it on the background there. We can basically use, there are so many different formatting options, and I probably won't dwell on all of them right now, but like, you know, if you wanted to have your text look like this, there are a bunch of presets that you can use. Again, it can be useful to think about the background color too. You want enough contrast that people can see it, but for the moment, I'm just going to go back to my black text here. I'm just going to type in the hex code because that's the kind of web developer I am. Okay. You can change the alignment. You can change the properties. So again, what I probably want to do at this point, I can sort of watch this, but I want to drag it through and just see what's actually happening. And I guess at some point you can see that this goes over to 3 lines. So I probably want to, you know, think about repositioning this a little bit. So I don't know if I really want to do it there, but backgrounds.
Personally, anytime it would break more than 2 lines, would cut that in half and delete everything in front of it and behind it so that it becomes 2 separate captions.
Sure. So, I mean, and especially if you are trying to go for the fancy captions, that's probably what you do. I'm not going to dwell on this too long because this is a pretty short demonstration. But again, whatever changes you're making while this apply to all button is selected will actually be reflected everywhere else. So, and I guess like and again, I can change the alignment of those things as well. All right. But again, I guess the other thing too here is the fonts that you use. So we do have this bold font. This is actually a free font that is very popular with a very particular person's content. The font itself is actually free, and you can just search for this. It's called the font. And so if you do specifically want this one here, you can go in and grab it. Again, some of the other things that might be worthwhile exploring visually is to actually maybe incorporate some sort of glow. I can have a bit of separation there visually. I can also include a background. So if I did want more of that that solid background, and I can do that with rounded corners and height and width and all the rest. Often I will change this to like 75%. Again, if I could type on a live demo. Oh, that's the offset. I wanted the height and the width. These ones here. So again, like whatever you want to do, and I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that what we want to do is we want to make sure that they're all available and we can see them well. The other thing too, occasionally CapCut will actually, and I don't think I've got a good example here, but sometimes they will actually, like if I increase the font here, at some points that word different will be too large to actually fit on a single line. And at that point, I think you really do want to go in and change that. So whatever you decide to do, you can come in here and do this here. I'm going to turn off that background because I don't want it in this case. But essentially, we've got this here. Once you've actually got these where you want them to be, you can come in and you can turn off this apply to all, and then you can start making changes on these ones individually. So you could actually come in here and I guess another thing I should mention briefly is that the automatic captions don't always work. So you do want to go in and actually manually check these. In this context, it doesn't know that Camtasia is a word, so I've got to go in and fix that. But once you're reasonably happy with how they look, again, if you turn off that apply to all, you can actually come in here and maybe I select the word Camtasia. And maybe I want to treat that differently because I want to emphasize it. So I can come in and maybe change the color. So I might go with, I don't know, bright orange or something. No, I probably, again, if I'm going to change it to that color, I probably want to think about the glow changing as well. But essentially I can come in and do this. I can also come in and actually animate these as well. So if there are a particular way I want these treated, you do, again, if I have this one, for example, and I'm just going to hit that download button so I can apply it here. Okay, and that way we hit play. You could see that those words are coming in and animating in different styles. So again, like there's a lot that you can potentially do with this software, but for beginners, the reason we kind of recommend it is that it is literally free and people can sort of work in it in whatever way they want to. So, and again, we've done an entire show on editing in CapCut, so if you do want to check that out in more detail, you certainly can. Sam, was there anything you wanted to add before we move on to our templates?
Let's not do templates yet. About captions, no, I think you touched on everything I was going to point out. There is a little more to it that can be done. I think you can apply transitions to them as well. There's you hit the animations. You can do those both on the in and the out. And yeah, I think you really got it. I personally, for vertical video specifically, try to really get those captions to be as short as possible without them being too jarring. Like I've seen people do like just a single word on the screen, and those people are idiots. Like we're not that
I must
ADD.
admit, Descript actually has a template that is literally just one word at a time, and like it just drives me nuts.
Yeah, it's got to be at least 3 or 4. Give me a chunk. Give me like a good portion of the sentence. Don't give me the whole sentence necessarily, but fill that bottom area and make it as big as possible. That's all I got.
Sure. Okay, cool. So let's talk about templates, and I guess you're going to talk about CapCut templates, but I guess before we get there, the other idea that I want to put to you is that sometimes, and I see a lot of this on TikTok, sometimes people have their own personal templates where they will tell a joke, but they will have 4 very specific parts of their kitchen and they'll take different shots in different places. And I guess not only is that familiar and sort of reassuring to an audience, but also it can be really great in terms of, taking a day, I'm going to record all of these shots in a row. Some at the sink, some in front of the fridge, whatever it happens to be. Yeah. And, you can actually sort of build out that content, in the editing software. So again, I think like sometimes we do bond over familiar things. So that's worthwhile talking about as well. But do you want to talk to us about the use of these templates within CapCut specifically?
Yeah. So, we've touched on what this is earlier, where you have some kind of trending meme in video format, vertical video format primarily. A lot of these are like a specific filter or effect. Those generally you're going to do inside the app itself, although it seems like CapCut has started to bring some of that functionality over, but right now most of that's in the mobile app. I'm going to show off the desktop app, which all of this functionality is on both the mobile app and the desktop app. I feel like the browser version was still a little behind on this, but you've seen these memes, these videos where it's, generally a celebrity cutout, like Will Ferrell yelling, "You shut up now," or whatever it is. These things are coming almost all the time. Not necessarily every single time, but almost all the time from CapCut. So which scene are we doing here? It's this? Sure. So yeah, like right here, this is the Will Ferrell one. You guys can't hear the sound because it would be jarring. And these are so easy. This is Tom Cruise not apologizing. So here, I can just click on this, gives you a closer look at it. I think in the mobile app, oh no, it went away because I did something. In the mobile app, it's actually going to tell you before you even go into it how many assets it's going to use. And I just found this out before we started today's show. They have this fancy little sorter here, so I can filter the results by format. So we're going to go portrait. I'm going to be like, I don't want to do something too long. I just want a 0 to 15 second. And let's say 2 clips. So I have 2 pieces of media that I'm going to put into this, right? So here's our lady who had her breakdown on the plane. This doesn't actually look like it's doing much. Where it's got to be. Let's do one of the green screening ones. I'm going to go back.
Yeah,
to
and I guess that's something we should probably articulate is that the ones with the green backgrounds are there because you can chroma key that out in CapCut, so you can essentially put it on top of something else.
Yeah, sometimes these are all creator based, so sometimes it'll be very obvious with the green, and sometimes you'll know just because. So we'll go into our Will Ferrell. And did CapCut just... Oh, it reset itself on my other monitor. But hello, OBS. So there it is. And then from here, it's going to give you all the quick helps. I'm doing the quick helps. You don't need to tell me. So it shows you...
I think there's a done button down the bottom of the screen on the right-hand side.
Yeah,
there
no, that's
cool.
actually for the thing itself. So with the templates, unlike the CapCut editor itself, it's going to take you right into this special timeline that is exactly where you're adding your assets, your clips. So this one says it needs something that is 9.2 seconds. So I hit that plus button. I'm going to grab something at random, hopefully fits. This is my kids. So let's maybe not do that. This is all of my awesome work I did earlier on creating a folder structure that I don't need for this particular project. But let's go into, actually, go Los Angeles, to be sorted, aquarium. Yeah, and we'll get just some random fish or something. Give me here, dolphin or a penguin. So we'll import our media and drag it onto there. Oh, it's too short. God damn it. This is the one thing that is better in the app experience. Let's just go by size and pick whatever the biggest thing is. Sure. That's got to fit, right? There we go. So now he's on my aquarium. Now if I hit done, so I could play it, and he's yelling over my aquarium shot of this seal feeding. And now I hit done, and it takes me back to a more traditional timeline. And this particular template, I wish I had time to have vetted these first. It just gives you this text. On the app, you can almost always edit the text. Sometimes it's available inside the desktop version, but apparently not in this particular one. So let me go back out, see if I can't find it. It's really just that simple, though. You're just dropping in an asset and adding things. Like you can, if you know what your go-to is, here we go. This is where the text is. So again, same thing. This time it's an even shorter video clip. Hit that, and then I can change my text here. Oh my God, jellyfish, right? Whatever it is. And then I can just export it and I'm done. Like that, assuming had any logic to it whatsoever.
Yeah.
Took 30 seconds, right?
So I guess, that's maybe the thing, is that they are relatively easy to put together. So, if it's going to supplement something that you're already doing, I think it's certainly worth exploring. But again, like I can guarantee that, that whatever film studio was behind that movie has not made that publicly available.
They have
for the
not
hell of it.
licensed that. But anybody who's working for the industry and thinks that you're losing money on this, you're wrong. But
well, again, like I guess I'm just, I come back to that thing about being obsessed with my own intellectual material and only wanting to do that. But anyway,
right.
We hope this has been useful. And again, like I guess if you do want to learn more about CapCut, we have done an entire show on that previously, so you can check that out in the archives. I guess, like, as we start to wrap up, like, what if somebody is sort of trying to make this decision about, whether to embrace the trends or whether to do their own thing, like, what is the general advice that you might have for them, Sam?
I mean, again, like, know your niche, know your talking point, and see how that trend can be used to promote your thing. If you're just jumping on it because it's there, it's not going to be worth it. You want to make sure there is some value to it, whether that is comedic or, actual, like, driving sales, whatever it is. But if it's just like everybody's doing pink Barbie stuff, I'm doing dancing on a pink background for some reason, it's not worth it. Make sure it applies.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so, and I guess the other thing is, like, copyright concerns to one side. Like,
Sure.
It's not massively difficult for you to try these things out and see if they're going to work for you. And honestly, that's 90% of the content creation journey, is trying things, getting feedback, and reassessing as you go ahead. So I hope this has been useful. Sam, where can people find you and watch your content and do all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. You can find all of my links up on my website, samproof.tv. And click any of those little social buttons to find me on there. For the most part, Threads, which probably isn't there, and TikTok and Instagram and YouTube are your best shot. But for the majority of things, I'm working on Cute Avalanche all the time. So find me over at cuteavalanche.com and all of those links.
Nice. And if you want to catch up with anything I'm doing, you can head over to johnlacey.com for all the social links and also some articles and tips and all kinds of wonderful stuff, so you can check that out. So again, thank you for those that have joined us live, and thank you for those of you that might be watching this sometime in the future. We do appreciate it. Let us, like and subscribe wherever you're watching this, but let us know if there are particular things that you would like us to explore on future shows as well. We'd love to hear that as well. But have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye, everyone.